The crystal chandeliers of the Boston Legacy Museum cast long, judgmental shadows, but none felt colder to Serafina Hayes than the gaze of her own husband. She stood beside him, poised in an emerald gown, an elegant, isolated island in a sea of predominantly white, wealthy Boston elite. This was the annual Autumn Charity Gala, and the air was thick with the scent of old money, expensive perfume, and champagne. Serafina felt the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on her, their polite smiles never quite reaching their eyes. At 50, Julian Croft was still the charismatic CEO, but the warmth he showed the crowd was a chilling absence when he turned to her. As they entered, he barely touched her arm, yet the whispers followed them like a rustling wind. "She's only here because of him," a woman whispered behind her fan. "How long before he trades up?" Serafina tried to greet Mrs. Eleanor DeWitt, the 70-year-old matriarch of Boston society, who was watching her with clear disappointment. Mrs. DeWitt offered only a curt nod before turning away. The slight stung, but Serafina kept her chin high. She subtly checked her diamond-encrusted clutch, not for a mirror, but for the small, solid shape hidden beneath the silk lining. Later, Julian tapped his champagne glass for silence. He gave a charming theatrical speech about legacy and the importance of charity, all while Serafina stood beside him, flawlessly playing the role of the proud, supportive wife. The room was captivated. When he finished, he turned to Serafina. The public smile vanished, replaced by a cold, transactional expression. "Serafina, my dear," he said, his voice just loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "I believe this belongs to you." He pulled a crisp white envelope from his tuxedo pocket and handed it to her. The room fell utterly, shockingly silent. Every guest, every waiter, every musician froze. They were no longer at a charity event. They were spectators. Serafina's manicured hands trembled slightly as she took the envelope. She didn't need to open it. She knew exactly what it was. "Go ahead, Serafina," Julian said, his voice carrying across the hush. "Don't keep our guests waiting. Or perhaps you'd rather beg me to reconsider." What a shocking and cruel moment. If you are still watching and you are standing with Serafina against this public humiliation, please comment with the words "strength" below to let us know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I truly recommend you do so and turn on that notification bell, because you will not want to miss how she responds. Your support helps us at Black Brilliance continue to create these powerful and inspiring stories. Now, let's see what happens next. Julian expected tears. He expected pleading. He did not expect the slow, cold calm that settled over Serafina's features. The whispers that had followed her earlier now turned to shocked, pitying murmurs. But Serafina didn't hear them. Her gaze drifted past her husband to Isabel Vance, Julian's 28-year-old secretary, who was watching from the sidelines with a barely concealed, triumphant smirk. Isabel stepped forward now, placing a proprietary hand on Julian's arm as if claiming her prize. "Julian is being more than generous, Serafina," Isabel said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "You should just sign it and leave quietly." Julian tore the papers from the envelope, holding them up. "He's offering $50,000 a month," he announced to the crowd, as if proving his own benevolence. A few people gasped. Serafina knew it was less than his monthly car payment. This calmness wasn't weakness. It was the result of 6 months of meticulous preparation. Her mind flashed back to that rainy afternoon 6 months prior. Julian had insisted she take a relaxing spa trip. She had returned early, walking into their Boston penthouse to find receipts left carelessly on his desk. They weren't just for jewelry. They were for wire transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands that she didn't recognize. Then she found the texts, the late-night calls to Isabel. The betrayal was a physical blow, but it was the financial discovery that switched something off inside her. She realized Julian had always underestimated her, seeing her only as a beautiful accessory, never as an equal. He never imagined the woman he dismissed because of her race and background would be smart enough to look closer. So, Serafina started digging. Using her full access as his wife, she traced the money. The truth was worse than an affair. Julian was using the very charity they were attending tonight, the DeWitt Family Charity Fund, as a front to launder millions. Back in the present, Seraphina's gaze moved from Julian's smug face to Mrs. DeWitt, who was still watching with profound disappointment. Seraphina knew that in 5 minutes, that disappointment would turn to pure horror. She ignored Isabel completely. She looked directly at Julian, her voice steady and clear. "You're right, Julian. This is a night for charity, and I believe it's time everyone knew just how charitable you've really been." Seraphina Hayes did not walk away from her husband. She walked past him, ascending the small stage at the front of the ballroom as if she owned it. Julian's confident smirk began to fade, replaced by a flicker of confusion. He thought he was firing an employee. He didn't realize he was cornering a partner. "Seraphina, what are you doing?" Julian called out, his voice losing its smooth edge. "Get off the stage." Seraphina ignored him, her heels clicking against the marble. She reached the podium, where the large screen behind her currently displayed the elegant DeWitt Charity Fund logo. Mrs. DeWitt leaned forward, her expression sharp and intrigued. "Good evening," Seraphina said, and her voice, now amplified by the microphone, echoed through the silent ballroom. "My husband has just presented me with divorce papers. He believes I am entitled to $50,000 a month. I, however, believe you. Our guests, and especially Mrs. DeWitt, are entitled to the truth." Julian's face turned pale. "Seraphina, don't be ridiculous." Seraphina pulled the small, solid shape from her clutch, a USB drive. "My husband mentioned legacy in his speech," she said, plugging the drive into the podium laptop. "Let's look at the real legacy he's been building." The DeWitt logo on the giant screen vanished. It was replaced by spreadsheets, scanned bank statements, offshore account numbers from the Cayman Islands and Switzerland, and highlighted wire transfer records. "For the past 3 years," Seraphina announced, her voice ringing with cold clarity, "Julian Croft has been systematically laundering money through the DeWitt Foundation, stealing from the very children this gala is meant to support." The room exploded in a collective gasp. Mrs. DeWitt rose to her feet, her face pale with fury as she stared at the evidence on the screen. "Julian, is this true?" Julian lunged for the stage, his mask of charm completely gone. "She's lying. She's a vindictive, hysterical woman. You have no authority, Seraphina. You are nothing." The truth is finally exposed. If you are still watching and you are cheering for Seraphina's incredible move, please comment with the word "shocked" below to let us know you're here. Trust me, Julian just called her nothing, but the biggest shock is still to come. If you haven't subscribed, I strongly recommend you do so and ring that notification bell, because you will not want to miss the finale. Your support is what allows us at Black Brilliance to keep bringing you these powerful and inspiring stories. Now, let's see how Seraphina answers him. "She is nothing," Julian roared, scrambling onto the stage, his face purple with rage. "She came to this marriage with nothing, and she will leave with nothing." Seraphina calmly stepped away from Julian's lunge, her eyes like ice. The whispers from Chapter 1, "She's only here because of him," were now a deafening silence. The entire room had realized in an instant that the power dynamic had shattered. 2 large security guards were now moving purposefully toward the stage, alerted by the commotion. In the crowd, Isabel was frozen, her face pale, finally understanding she had backed the wrong and now powerless of horse. Mrs. DeWitt, however, watched Seraphina with a new, sharp, and profound respect. "I'll have you arrested for slander. This company is mine," Julian shouted, adjusting his tuxedo, trying to regain his composure. "Actually, Julian, it's not," Seraphina replied calmly into the microphone, her voice cutting through his rage. She reached into her clutch for the second time and pulled out a thicker, folded legal document. "When we founded Croft Industries 8 years ago," she explained, addressing the room, "you were so busy underestimating me, so convinced I was just a pretty simple trophy wife you could hide away, that you had me sign all the incorporation papers without reading them, including the ones that list me as a 50% equity partner." Julian's face went from red to a ghostly white. That's not possible," he stammered. "Oh, it is," Seraphina continued. "You see, Julian, while you were having your affair, I was exercising my rights as a 50% owner. I called an emergency board meeting this morning. I presented them with this same evidence of fraud. As of 9 a.m., you were unanimously voted out as CEO. She held up the signboard resolution for the room to see. Meet the new interim CEO of Croft Industries. Julian stared, his mouth open, utterly defeated. This was the shock. This was the moment his world ended. Mrs. DeWitt signaled the guards, her voice firm. Mr. Croft, I believe you are trespassing. As the guards seized Julian's arms, Serafina's voice cut through one last time. Oh, and Julian? All your personal assets? They were frozen by court order an hour ago. You will leave with nothing. The man who had entered the gala as a king was dragged out like a common criminal, his protests about lies and betrayal drowned out by the sudden stunned applause that started with Mrs. DeWitt. The matriarch, who wouldn't even look Serafina in the eye an hour ago, now approached the stage with humbled gratitude. Isabel Vance, seeing her entire future dissolve, tried to slip out the side exit unnoticed. Security. Stop that woman, Serafina said, her voice calm and authoritative, pointing from the stage. The guards instantly blocked Isabel's path. Mrs. DeWitt reached the steps. Mrs. Hayes. Serafina, she said, her voice low but clear. You have saved my family's legacy. I have been a fool. Serafina gave a single, polite nod. The legacy is safe, Mrs. DeWitt. Now, we just have to restore it. Serafina's attention returned to Isabel, who was now trapped by the guards. Isabel Vance, Serafina said into the mic, was not just my husband's mistress. She was his active partner in fraud, forging the documents to move the money. As if on cue, two figures in dark suits, Agent Harris and Agent Chen, entered discreetly from the lobby. They walked directly to Isabel. Ms. Vance, you need to come with us. Isabel crumbled, all the fight draining out of her as the handcuffs clicked. Agent Harris then approached the stage, looking up at Serafina with professional respect. Mrs. Hayes, we'll take it from here. Serafina addressed the silent, shocked crowd one last time. I apologize for the evening's interruption. Croft Industries will be in contact tomorrow. We will be fully transparent, and we will make this right. Every dollar stolen will be returned. Serafina stepped down from the stage, walking past the shell-shocked guests. She didn't look back once. 1 year later, the Boston Legacy Museum Gala was held again, but this time, the name on the invitation was not Croft, but Hayes. Serafina stood on the same stage, not as a humiliated wife, but as the celebrated hostess and CEO. The ballroom felt different. The atmosphere was warm, respectful, and vibrant. At Serafina's head table, Mrs. Eleanor DeWitt sat laughing warmly, her hand resting affectionately on Serafina's arm. Julian, it was known, was serving the 3rd year of his federal sentence for fraud. Isabel, having been denied leniency, was also in prison. Serafina stepped to the podium. She gave a speech not about abstract legacy, but about tangible results. She spoke of the Hayes Foundation, which, using the funds recovered from Julian's frozen assets, had genuinely funded 3 new children's centers in Boston in the past year alone. Later, Mrs. DeWitt raised her glass for a toast. To a woman who taught an old city new lessons about integrity, courage, and true legacy. Boston is better for having you. The room erupted in genuine, thunderous applause. Serafina smiled, a true relaxed smile. She thought about Julian. He saw her as nothing because of where she came from and the color of her skin. He expected her to beg because he only saw her exterior. He was shocked because he never bothered to see the woman who was always standing right next to him. The gala was a resounding success. Serafina, the black woman they once scorned, was now the most respected philanthropist and business leader in the city. As the night ended, Serafina looked out at the city's skyline. She is no longer in a gilded cage. She is free, respected, and in control. The ultimate shock for Julian wasn't just losing his company. It was realizing the woman he threw away was the only one capable of running it. The quiet dignity of Serafina Hayes, standing tall after being so cruelly underestimated, reminds us that true strength is often forged in silence. Like a seemingly simple locked chest, we can never truly know the resilience and brilliance hidden inside someone until we look past the exterior. What did Serafina's courage teach you about your own inner strength? We invite you to reflect and share your thoughts in the comments below, as your wisdom enriches this community. If this story touched your heart, please consider sharing this warmth with others. It is in celebrating these powerful moments of Black brilliance that we find our greatest inspiration.